What's shaking, cats and kittens? Rob Lee here for this month's presenting sponsor, Night Owl Gallery. Night Owl Gallery is an intimate, artist-run exhibition space showcasing the original paintings and fine art prints of Beth Ann Wilson. Also, it features curated goods from local artists and craftsmen. You'll be sure to find one-of-a-kind gifts, handcrafted jewelry, home decor items, along with a few vintage treasures. Located in the rear of 248 South Conklin Street in Highlandtown, across from the Sally O's, Night Owl Gallery is a unique space that brings together Wilson's love of the arts, community, and culture. Additionally, Night Owl Gallery hosts an array of arts and crafts workshops throughout the year and participates in community events, many of which are free and open to the public. So in this ever-changing world, safety is their priority. So feel free to join them and hit them up online at www.nightowl.gallery. Tell them Rob Lee sent you. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today's guest is the founder and owner of Tola's Room. We have Christina Delgado. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. As you can see, cookie dough is featured as well over here.
It's a great name. It's a great name.
Yes, it is a great day.
So let's start talking about it. Let's talk about what Tola's Room is about, and which your work is about there.
Sure. So Tola's Room is a concept that I kind of just evolved over time, right? Like I always wanted to have a collective sort of concept around business. And initially it started when I was a makeup artist, and then kind of evolved as I became a single mom trying to look for things for my daughter to do. And that's sort of where the name kind of came from. And then more recently, just as business does, it kind of evolves. I realized, I'm an artist, I'm an educator, I'm a community organizer. And I do so many things. And so ultimately that is what our mantra is, right? So it's a collective of art, community, and education. We believe that those three pillars really build human capacity, community capacity, and ultimately the idea would be to let it lead to generational wealth. And so just doing different things in those realms.
I like that. It's a great mission, and I think it's really important that especially here with a city that has its different struggles and its different perceptions, and having this, and then I think awareness and maybe this notion of resources around for the youth to kind of help sponsor and foster an interest in art and an interest in doing something that is past the moment. It's be aware and be mindful of what's going on right here at this moment, but also something in the future, what have you. Think about what you're leaving behind when you touched on generational wealth and all.
That's
so
right.
That's important. It's huge. And I think people are so indoctrinated with this notion of check to check, or, I need to just do this for the right now. And it can be deeper than that. And to me, it speaks to having a plan and having art be a part of it. But having a plan is the major thing for me. Right.
100%.
So share some of the programs or partnerships that you're doing with Tola's Room.
So we've it's kind of crazy because we've done so many. I think initially when we started, we partnered with a lot of local businesses, or I shouldn't say a lot, a few local businesses to create different pop-up event kind of shop event ideas, and we did that a couple of times. And then more recently, I'm really excited with the partnership that I've made first of all, we partner with Northeast Leaders, which is a group of amazing people that do great work throughout the city of Baltimore, but kind of started and stemmed from wanting to focus in the Northeast part of Baltimore. And so we've done, different things like flea market events in Harriman Park. We just recently, this past Saturday, did an ice cream social for one of the founding members who passed away in memory of her. So we're really just a group of people that, do great work, and we bring our power together collectively and just kind of shine in different ways. And then also I did recently with Naima Sharif and Life, her group, we did a anti-litter art advocacy project with some youth in Bel Air Edison, and I was really excited about that. It's called Just Don't. And so that was cool. It was intense because it was like a 3-month intensive of teaching, high school kids virtually and in person about art and art as advocacy and, the effects of litter and trash, right? But it was cool. We ended up having an outdoor exhibit in Harriman Park in May, and the kids learned a lot. And now we're working on creating the marketing material to use in the community. So those are some of the more recent partnerships, I guess.
That's great. And it's not far from my alma mater. I believe that area you describe, Heron Run, it's like, that's near Morgan.
Yes. Morgan Cares actually funded our Just Don't project. Yeah.
It's wonderful. Go Bears and all of that good stuff. Because it's great to hear when just things come together. When things come together.
100%.
So can you share one or two stories of individuals whose lives have been changed because of the organization?
So definitely we're social entrepreneurs, want to kind of put it out that in that capacity. I don't know. I think I've affected a lot of people. I think my daughter and I working together, we've made a lot of change. I think that we've through just leadership, right? Like just through servant leadership and doing and showing, we've helped other leaders to get ideas or just to kind of help grow their capacity. As an educator, I think that I've actually reached quite a few lives. It's funny just living in the city. I've been in Baltimore since probably about 2004, 2005. And like, I'll see kids and they'll come up to me and, sometimes I remember their faces and sometimes I don't, but still they're just like, you taught me, or like, I remember you. And I'll never forget one time I was getting a hat for my daughter. We were going to the Walters Museum. She was tiny, so it was probably about 5 years ago. And we went to a boutique that was across the street. And this girl, she like approaches me and she's like, I know you. And I could not recognize her. And she's like, you're Miss Delgado. She said, you taught me photography. It's because of you that like I'm in modeling and I like photography. And like, it really took me, it was like hard not to like have tears in my eyes, because it sounds so cheesy, but you do the work because it's your passion, it's your love, but when you really affect someone's life, it's like, wow, that it really works, it really does work. So yeah, I don't know. I think I've affected a few people in my life. I don't know that I could like note them all, but I'd like to say that I've made some positive change.
That's great to hear. I remember a few years back, I did this. I did this thing. It was a high school. I believe it was maybe Douglas over there near Mondawmin, and I just went there, and I'm self-taught at all of this stuff, right? So yeah. I went there and we had like a radio station set up, and they were doing this new like radio booth situation. And basically, and this is not long after the unrest and all of that stuff that went on there. And it's kind of demonizing of those people in that area, namely the children.
Wow.
And it was interesting. They saw like me there doing interviews and running this whole program, someone that looks like them, that's from that same place. And I've run into one or two of them. It's like, I know you. You're that podcast guy. You're that guy. It's like, I remember sitting down and watching and observing. And now I'm pursuing this area in, college, or I'm doing my own podcast. And I think sometimes just being able to see it, people get something from it. And it's just like, there's more to it. You can get something from it. You either have to see it or you talk to the person, but they never forget you. And, I remember one of my experiences, even being the receiver in that instance. I was in high school, and I had a class with a film critic, and she told us about film theory and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. So we were watching like horror movies and things like that in the course, but it was like well done horror movies. And even now, because I'm doing a movie and we're watching a movie for a review that I'm doing later this week, and some of the lessons she taught in that, which had to be in 2002, maybe I still utilize. It was like, Miss Lee. Yeah. I remember, what she taught me, and I'm still using it to this day, and how I view movies and how I look at like how CGI is used in there and things of that nature. So it's really big, and it's an important role that I think educators, especially in that creative space, play.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's funny because one of my fond memories as a kid was something similar where, like an art group came in and like I did like learned how to like act and sing and do all this musical. And then we did like a off Broadway kind of like thing. And I remember my dad bringing me flowers, it was like a big thing. And just to see full circle now that, that's some of the work that I do, it's my passion, my career. So it's just kind of funny how these things do affect you. Sometimes like they're in the forefront of your mind, and other times it's just more subconscious, but it does, does definitely mold you as a person.
Absolutely. 100%. So you touched on the off Broadway piece. This is not a question that I had on there either. So you get something different. So what was the story of you coming to Baltimore? Where were you originally from?
Yeah, so I'm originally from New York City, born and raised. My parents divorced early when I was young. So before they divorced, they wanted to kind of transition to someplace new. And so they moved to Richmond. When they divorced, my mom stayed there. So when I graduated high school, I naturally transitioned to Richmond. I went to VCU. And then I was actually doing makeup professionally when I was in school. And that kind of led me up to DC, where I did that for a while. And then I met a man, and then he was transitioning to Baltimore. I was looking for something different. I was looking to kind of get back into like my degree of psychology and that sort of thing. And so then, in like 2004, 2005, I ended up moving up here. I met Sally Smith, who was the founder of Washington Lab and Baltimore Lab Schools. And so that kind of got me into the realm of teaching, and of art, related teaching. And so I've been here ever since. But it's been cool. It's definitely been cool. It's I always say it's a love-hate relationship with me in Baltimore.
We'll have more about that actually. Because New Yorkers, we have a weird relationship with y'all.
Yeah.
So how does your work like, and I think you touched on it, but maybe we can go deeper into that. But how does your work comment on social or political issues?
So I think, it's funny, if my friends were listening to this, they would be kind of chuckling right now. So I think I hit it in subtle ways sometimes, and then more direct and raw ways in others. I definitely, when I first started the community organizing bits, I learned the hard way that you kind of have to be careful. You can't always be so direct and out there, just because there's just a lot of, power struggles and egos and bureaucracy, even at the community level, that is a little frustrating, but have definitely kind of learned to work around. I would say with my art, it's definitely more direct. I try to put like my feelings out there, whether it's just through, photo documentation, or whether it's through some type of mixed media work or word art kind of piece. In education, I'm always pushing the envelope, really trying to, change the way learning happens, change the way teaching happens, really always trying to bring a community elements and an element of self into the work that I do in the classroom. And then for organizing work, I think I learned over time, people naturally want to always address the issues. And that is really very important and valuable. But it can also sometimes be daunting. It can sometimes just be overwhelming. And so, always with the issues in mind, now I think my work really is about just building human capacity, like really touching on the beauty that already exists, and then finding ways to just kind of elevate that and helping, to just push through, again, through servant leadership, through example, and then just offering up ways to kind of do that. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but, I feel like, I can be raw in my feelings and my talk sometimes, but I've learned also to kind of be a little bit passive and a little more, I guess, subtle in my ways, but still strong.
I think that's think that's important where you're able to show something that's real or what have you. And I think it comes from a personality. I think when people are buying something, however, whether they want to receive it and accept it, but I think it comes from that. Because if it's like you're just doing the same de facto, we've heard this 1,000 times and there's nothing in it, then you're not really getting through to the person. But if it's something that comes like, oh, okay, that was a little raw right there. That's real right there. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. And you know, I get it in from this standpoint because I've been podcasting for 12 years. And I know people listening to this, like he says this every episode. But the point is ultimately that, you know, you learn a lot of how you're presenting yourself, how you present yourself as a brand, and even in the conversations you have with people. So if at 36, I'm still acting like the way I was when I was 24, I don't show much growth. So over that time, you grow as a person, you grow as an individual, and you recognize certain things that, oh, I send a representative. So I would imagine during that time of sending the representative and not being my authentic self and not presenting myself in that way, that I wouldn't show certain things. And when I'm more comfortable with showing and presenting myself, that's the thing I hear from people all the time, especially in these podcasts. Like before we turned on these cameras, I never met you before. We exchanged a few emails, but you know, it's really interesting how sometimes based off one small conversation, it's like, oh, we're friends now, or people will see you in the streets like, hey, man. And it comes from trying to be as authentic and open in yourself. So it 100%. Resonates for people.
100%. And it's funny, you know, that is definitely one thing. It's a philosophy I've always had because, you know, sometimes, you know, people's words can get to you and you feel like, you know, am I not doing what I, you know, intended to do, or, you know, am I falling short? But, you know, I really feel like if your heart is in it, you know, and if you know that you're following true to that, you know, and ultimately if it's always in the good, you know, in the mindset of like the good of yourself or the good of people, you know, then that's all that you can do, you know, and just constantly remind yourself of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, as you touched on earlier with just sometimes people don't want to hear what feels real. And sometimes people want to have that more sanitized thing. And I am not a sanitized person. I'm from here. Well, hold on, let me say it differently.
I know what you mean.
But yeah, like I like to just be authentic and show the warts, show the whole situation and get down to the good stuff and the bad stuff. And when I do this podcast, it came out of like this effort to try to normalize what's going on here. Like, we have as much talent as any one of these other cities that we have a lot of similarities to. We're just smaller in some ways. Like,
that's right.
But no, people would just do the demonizing thing, as I touched on when the unrest went down. It's like, y'all don't know anything about that area. Right. You know, it's not by any mistake that it's a really high historic, like Black area. Nah, it's only this over there.
Yeah.
So speaking of areas, there are some that are have a history or have a reputation even now that artists kind of get together. Like when I think of Station North, that's just where people like link up and you start seeing different creators collaborate and so on. From your vantage point, how important is it to be in a company of other artists when it comes to the development stage, process stage, or just the, hey, I want to pick your brain? How important is that for you?
Oh, it's so important. I think that's one of the things that I value most about being here. You know, I think that I didn't learn my fullest potential as an artist or creative until later in life. And it was truly because of being here in Baltimore, you know, and just being around the art culture, the art community, and having intention, like knowing that it was what I wanted to do. But then just kind of like naturally letting it sort of come together. So, you know, first it started in education. Naturally, it transitioned into like more embedded art and like art related teaching artistry. And then when organizing work came into it, it's like it just brought everything full circle for me. So, you know, some artists I just kind of knew, others I just co-called because I wanted to do community-based projects with them. And they were always so open and receiving. You know, there was never a time that I met somebody that I didn't know that isn't a friend now, you know, and, you know, that's a real true feeling. You know, I was thinking a lot about that question and, one thing I can say about the community, the artist community, it's kind of like almost like a handshake sort of thing. It's like a worth, a value, a trust, like an ability. It's like if you prove yourself, then, you have a forever friend, you have a forever community of people that you can pull from and choose from. And so, yeah, I think, the artist community is invaluable. It really is here in Baltimore. I think, all around the world, right? But like here in Baltimore, like they have been able to preserve culture. They've been able to reinvent a certain level of culture, and it truly is what makes the city. I think personally, I think it's, I think finally now the government, even the city government is like tapping in, BOPA's always been around, but like when you think about like just using art on buses or using art to like help with like certain like related issues, as a way to sort of just gain people's perspective, and in organizing work, art has always been the universal language for me. The community builder, the trust builder, the people builder. And so, it's to me, it's an important aspect of the work.
Totally. I definitely echo that sentiment. And I think one of the things I've been playing with in terms of what takes like Baltimore to that next level, potentially in a much larger, more visible kind of way, I don't know, but I think that there are things that are here that, because people look in some ways at Baltimore as a kind of stamp of approval way, because you can get some traction really quickly here because of that. Once you've proven yourself, and there are some things you have to go through to prove yourself, because, we have a thing against outsiders sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
But once you've kind of proven yourself that you are about the stuff and you do good work and all of that good stuff, then it's like, you can easily move up and you can go from place to place. And I think people have tapped into it. Like you'll see that, as you touched on, I've seen on train stops that are on that line from like with Mark or Amtrak. I'll go up to Philadelphia and I'll see like the Visit Baltimore. I was like, is that Chino?
Yeah. I saw one in New York. I was I was like, what? Shut up. Yeah,
I need to find a way to get myself on there. Like, just have my head on there and a beard. That'll be great. Just a Carhartt shirt and a beard. That's all I am. It's a ghost.
I love it. That's so funny.
So let's switch gears a little bit, and we got a few more questions before we wrap up. Aside from your work, what other creative interests do you have?
Yeah. So as I've been kind of touching on, I'm a professional makeup artist, so that's definitely a talent. I'm a foodie, hands down. So I definitely love trying different things and offering up different spaces and places that I find. I'm a wine and whiskey connoisseur. Whiskey definitely just is a newer thing for me, but loving it, especially Japanese whiskey.
See, hold on, how are we not friends already? Because you're describing everything. I got some Centauri right here.
Yes, yeah. Nika is actually my favorite. It's a coffee bean one.
Yeah.
But a coffee green one, I should say. Let's see, what else? I love to dance. Deep Sugar parties are some of my favorite times, my favorite dance memories. The Paradox, when it was open, that was good times too. And let's see, what else? Foodie, wine. Oh, and music. Music is really a love. My dad was a maestro, I think, when it came to music. And so it was just part of like an intrinsic thing, it's definitely a way to, I think, to reach people, and community. So yeah, music is definitely a passion of mine too.
I mean, it sounds like you might be an air sign. There's so many similarities there. I was here and I was like, whiskey, food, dancing, music. Like, hold on, run that back. The only difference was it was two. I don't dance. I just kind of play the wall while drinking my whiskey. And I don't do makeup. However, I do make sure that my nails are properly trimmed and that I make sure I use the Pharrell face stuff so I don't look like I'm 36. So yes.
Self-care is very important. Yeah.
That's the closest thing. Little foundation, maybe, just a little bit,
a little black powder. First time.
Yeah, just a little bit. A little rice powder. Get my cheekbones popping or what have you.
Oh my God, I love it. Too funny.
So speak on, and this was a question we touched on a little bit before we actually hit the record buttons. Let's go back to that, describing that relationship and how you feel that relationship should go between the community and the artists within the community. Like, as I'm paraphrasing a little bit to kind of get my point across a little bit better, because I realized you were right. So speaking on that, what should that relationship look like, or how would you want that relationship to look like between artists and the community in which they're in?
So yeah, art and community, right? Like artists and community. I just really think that it's really, especially I think in Baltimore too, right? Like when you think about how small Baltimore is, right, and how it is the people, right, that help to build up the artist and the art, the artist's ability and capacity. Like even when you think about public murals, there's always, depending, for the most part, there's a conversation with community on like what that looks like, or, how to build a better representation. I think that artists are very, for the most part, artists are very intentional about community and like reaching out to community and having conversations. I think even when you have some of the artists that have kind of evolved and at a more finer art level or like more exhibit level, they started, on the ground at one point doing community, doing street murals, whatever that is. So yeah, I think they just kind of go hand in hand, really.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that kind of gets you over a little bit too, of like, some of the people I've had on, they always talk about, doing some of these murals, doing this community-based work, and staying in the community. Like, like I may have, they may talk about having, I may go to New York and I may do that for a while. I may go west, do that for a while, like in Cali or something like that. But I always make it a point to live in Baltimore 3 to 6 months out of the year, because that's the community that I made my bones in. That's where my relationships are at. That's where my inspiration comes from. And I think too often Baltimore doesn't get that credit for it, and kind of helping birth and maybe cultivate a lot of those practices.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
I've swapped out my last question. I turned it into something because you said something that I need to get back to.
Okay.
So you talked about the love-hate thing. So we're gonna give you this opportunity to redeem that, because we're a very pro Baltimore thing here. You are pro Baltimore. I've heard that.
Yeah.
You've mentioned some things that have reference, cultural reference here. Docs is one. So as things open back up, and as vaccinations and all that good stuff happening, traveling is going to increase. So I want you to put on that itinerary creator hat real quick. And it's like you're suggesting 3 things, places, experiences, whatever, that are in Baltimore that you recommend people check out. They could be 3 food places. They can be like, hey, you got to go here, get a bottle of, this Nika. You got to, what are 3 things that you would recommend from your vantage point? You touched on being a foodie. You hit these different things. Yeah. What are your 3 things?
Oh, I can never stay in the limits of like 3, right? So I'll try.
Or however many you want to.
All right. So let's see. So I just found out about this really awesome Greek restaurant right off of Eastern Avenue called Corella's Cafe. Amazing. Like literally it was like going into Greece. So we were sitting outside, like sitting with the locals, listening to their music. We were doing like shots. They were just like offering shots and like free coffee at the end.
Wow.
It was amazing. So that definitely, and I think that, right, like the intimacy of the communities, right? So like just not seeing it at the surface level, but like really walking in, like not just being on Eastern Avenue, but like walking into the side streets and experiencing that. The markets, of course, that's one of the things that sort of connected me back to New York, the Lexington markets and Light Street. And even though all of those things have kind of changed, some of them have changed and altered a bit. But that definitely, your little pockets of like, not really a Chinatown, but just some of those like still like pockets of like Asian restaurants, your little Italy's, Coco's crab cakes, of course, is like one of the, I know some people are like agreeing 100% and then others will kind of argue that a bit.
I didn't think you were going to make it political. Come on.
Oh, and wings. Hello. Ibar wings, hands down, are like.
Okay, Ibar is on point there.
Yeah, chef style wings.
Yeah, you called it right. You called it right. Chef style is right because we used to go there after recording on Friday nights, and we used to record at this radio station for this other podcast I did, and we would always get rejected because there was always too many people in there. It was almost like a nightclub, and I was like, maybe if I talk nice to the bouncer, because I don't like bouncers. And I was like, what's shaking, daddy? He's like, oh, y'all can come in. Y'all can come in. But usually that was like after 2 months of being rejected, we fall. I was like, they just want in. I was like, I just want some chef style wings.
Play you got to go in the afternoon. Like you got to go between like 11 and 2, 11 and 4. Those are the better times to go. We try to do
Good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, everything, like the music scene, the culture, like, Station North, of course, and like, Graffiti Alley, but just all of the underground things, some of the things I don't even really know about. I just kind of like find out about, right? Like with friends. And I think that's what I really enjoy too, is just those little pocket things that sort of like pop up. Herring Run Park, of course. I think our green spaces are beautiful. We have so many. If I had a magic wand, I would love to be able to like really make sure that they were all maintained and utilized to their fullest capacity. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's some of my favorites to do. Yeah, lately I've been also liking to go up to the mountains a little bit. I know it's not the city, but it's still part of the of Maryland, and I've been enjoying that as well.
It's one of those ways of bringing in, I think, the culture is a whole thing. You get like the food, you get to see some of these landmarks that aren't necessarily the tourist attractions. And that's what I like to do. Like, I think the last time I went up there to Brooklyn with my girlfriend, and I'd never been up there before. And like they have money, they're privileged. So it's like, oh yeah, Postmates all the time for everything. Any chapstick, Postmates.
That's so fun.
It's like, yo, I'm looking for a bodega.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't know anything over here. I was like, well, I need a chopped cheese. I was like, I'm just, yes. I have my Timberlands on. That was literally what I said to her. And she was like, can you stop? She was just like, she's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. No.
Where did that bad data come from?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I've always kind of been that way. If I've ever moved into a place, I always wanted to learn it and like learn it, the people, the culture. But, God, I mean, I've been here so long. It's definitely this embedded way of being. And to go back to this love-hate concept that I mentioned, it's sort of like a brother-sister relationship. It's like, you have your disagreements and your anger sometimes about certain situations. But then if someone, says something about them, you're ready to punch them in their face kind of thing, So like you want to
always,
you're ready to defend your brother, your sister. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for Baltimore. I wouldn't have a home. I wouldn't, have my career. I wouldn't be passionate, I think, about, the things that I am, or I wouldn't have been able to nurture that if it wasn't for Baltimore. So I am definitely grateful for that.
That's wonderful. And thank you, actually, for sharing all the stuff that you shared. So now it's that time that I think some people like, some people probably hate. Shameless plug time. So where can they find you? Where can they learn more about Tola's Room? Where can they follow you on social media? All of that good stuff. Yeah, so we're on most of the socials, but my most prominent one is Instagram. So that would be Tola's. So it's TOLAS_room as our handle. We have a link tree as well. That's Tola's Room. Facebook, Tola's Room as well. We do have a TikTok, but right now, technically, it's my daughter's personal one. So if you want to see all of her TikTok videos, you're more than welcome to do that. But yeah, we're just like finally, with this solo exhibit that we did last Saturday, PR Passion, we were really being more intentional about like building like our social media. So, right now it really is just like the Facebook, the Instagram, and the link tree where you can find us. That's great. So I'll do my sign off. Thank you so much, Christina. This has been great. It's been great to learn more about you and Tola's Room and all of that good stuff. And I'll say that there's art in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.